We got to Banff, and there was all these mountain bikers there. And I said, what, there's like hundreds of mountain bikers walking through town with their bikes, but no one was riding them. They were just kind of like, looked like they were getting ready for something. And we asked somebody like, what are you doing? And they said, oh, it's the Tour Divide. It's a race every year that goes from Banff to Mexico along the Continental Divide. And it's literally like 2,800 miles, all off-road. Mostly, I think it's 90% off-road. And you're completely alone. Like, one of the rules is you can't accept help or have any support of any kind in any way, or you're disqualified. And I said, what? This is crazy. It's basically what we were doing just out in the woods on trails.
Yeah.
You had to follow this specific route, which wasn't a trail that they built. It was just a connection of all different fire roads and back roads and trails. But it was a race every year. And we just happened to be in this town the night before it was happening. So we got up the next morning, saw all these like hundreds of cyclists just take off to Mexico, literally as if it was 5 miles away and they were sprinting to it. It was that kind of intensity. And we said to ourselves, all right, in 2 years, let's do this. And we did. 2 years later, we lined up at the starting line. But to get ready for that, we both lived in Central Florida. We're like, how are we going to train for elevation? How are we going to get ready for the Tour Divide being here in Florida? And so our bright idea was to do an Ironman right before it. So we basically trained, and we thought maybe the swimming would almost help, the lack of oxygen and having to pace yourself breathing would help with elevation training. We didn't know if that was true. We just thought, maybe that's the next. So
how much torture can we do so that we can simulate exactly all we're going to have to deal with?
At 10,000 feet, we live at 100 in Central Florida on the ridge. And so we trained for our first Ironman, half Ironman technically, in Haines City as our way to get ready for that. That was my intro into endurance and my intro into triathlons. I spent most of the days on that trip saying this was the dumbest idea we ever had. And I hate every second of this. It was cold, it was miserable, it snowed, it rained.
Wow.
It was filthy. You don't, that's the thing. You don't bathe a lot. You're out, you're like an animal. You're really like an animal. You find your only food is a gas station every 100 miles. So you have to load up with anything you can get your hands on. And there's no guarantee that these little towns you go through, you'll be going through them at a time where anything's open. So you might hit them at 2 a.m. And you have to make a decision. Do I wait until 8 or 9 when things open, or 7? Or do I keep going to the next town that's 50 miles and I could be there by the time things open? So there was a lot of those calculations. But the thing is, when I got to Mexico, I wasn't done. Paul went back home because he was married at the time. I wasn't. So I actually stayed out there and went to Canada again. But I went to Seattle and Vancouver, and then went across country again. So I spent another 4 months out there.
Wow.
And Paul was out there it took us 25 days to get to Mexico. But really, that felt like a continuation of the Ironman in the sense of intensity. And then once I got past that, the rest of the trip was much more leisurely when it was just me.